Manchester United have sacked their manager, Erik Ten Hag.
Manchester United and Erik Ten Hag are no more.
Erik Ten Hag has been sacked as Manchester United manager.
Erik Ten Hag is no longer Manchester United manager. Some might say it's too soon to let him go. Some might say it's about time. Some might say it should have happened much, much sooner. No matter where you stand, I think it's fair to say that it hasn't been an easy ride for Ten Hag as United boss, in what could easily be described as perhaps the most difficult job in football. In 2022, Ten Hag took over what was widely considered one of the worst Manchester United squads in recent memory, finishing 6th the year prior under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Ralf Rangnick. Rangnick famously spoke about the open heart surgery that United needed to truly turn the club's fortunes around. It was clear a change was needed, and after success in the Netherlands and a league-winning campaign with Ajax, Erik Ten Hag emerged as a standout candidate to take over the job, beating out the likes of Mauricio Pochettino, among others. There was a lot of optimism at first. Ten Hag had been a serial winner with Ajax and had a good track record of bringing through youngsters, both qualities which United felt aligned with their club values. He brought a few players with him from Ajax, namely Lisandro Martinez and Antony. Tyrone Malacia was also signed from the Netherlands, Christian Eriksen joined on a free transfer, and Casemiro was brought in from Real Madrid. Not to mention, the godly figure of Cristiano Ronaldo was still present, and it was very obvious from early on that he and Ten Hag did not get along. The drama started right from the word go, as United would fall in their first 2 matches of the Premier League season, losing to Brighton and 4-0 against Brentford. But United would turn their form around with the famous victory against Liverpool, and would go on to win 4 in a row, including a win against Arsenal. Throughout all this, the Ronaldo saga was never ending. It was clear Ten Hag didn't see the United legend fitting into his system, while Ronaldo felt he was still at the top of his game and was reluctant to acknowledge that Father Time was tapping him on the shoulder. This would culminate in Ronaldo's explosive interview with Piers Morgan, where he would expose the stagnation of the club over the last decade and shed light on his clear lack of respect for the manager. Ultimately, the relationship would be severed as Ronaldo would agree to terminate his contract and leave for Saudi Arabia. No matter who you are, coming into this already difficult job with a ton of pressure and being asked to confront one of the greatest the game has ever seen at one of the world's biggest clubs, that's not for the faint-hearted. United would end up finishing the season in 3rd place, something not even the most staunchest of fans would have predicted prior to the season. And Ten Hag would also deliver a Carabao Cup with a win against Newcastle in what would be the club's first trophy in 6 years. Marcus Rashford had his most successful campaign to date, delivering 30 goals in all competitions and being named United's Player of the Season. All the Ronaldo drama aside, and after an extremely shaky start to the season, finishing 3rd with a trophy and in a Champions League place, there are plenty of reasons for optimism for United fans going into Ten Hag's 2nd year in charge. Ten Hag would bring in more players in advance of his 2nd season, which included Johnny Evans on a free transfer, a controversial transfer of Mason Mount from Chelsea, a big money move for up-and-coming striker Rasmus Højlund from Atlanta, and perhaps the most intriguing signing of all in Andre Onana to replace a steadily declining David De Gea after leading Inter to a Champions League final. Unfortunately, United once again got off to a shaky start to begin the season, losing 2 of their first 4 matches to Spurs and Arsenal. And after the Arsenal defeat, Ten Hag would once again butt heads with a member of the squad. He would be asked after the match why Jadon Sancho wasn't selected to feature in the defeat, and told the press that it was due to his performances during training.
Jadon was on his performance on the training, we didn't select him. You have to reach a level every day on Manchester United, and we can make choices.
Sancho was not impressed by this, and would lash out on social media saying the following: "I will not allow people to say things that is completely untrue. I've conducted myself in training very well this week. I believe there are other reasons for this matter that I won't go into. I've been a scapegoat for a long time, which isn't fair." This incident would fall on the back of a disappointing season for Sancho, in which he scored just 7 goals for the club, being allowed to take a large part of the season off by the manager to deal with physical and mental challenges he was facing at the time. Sancho would go on to be frozen out of the squad and eventually sent on loan to Borussia Dortmund in January, before being sent off to Chelsea on a loan with obligation to buy in the summer of 2024. But by far the most prevalent story throughout Ten Hag's 2nd season would be injuries. The centre-back partnership of Varane and Martinez that was so successful in his first season in charge would each miss the majority of the season due to various injuries. Fullbacks were also a massive concern, especially at left-back, with Tyrone Malacia missing the entire season and emergency loanee Sergio Reguilon leaving in January, leaving United with no senior left-backs for the times Luke Shaw was also on the sidelines. Anthony Martial spent the vast majority of the season injured, and with new signing Højlund also struggling with injuries at times, United were left short in the striker department as well. The midfield situation was also a mess, with new signing Mason Mount barely playing at all due to injury, Eriksen missing a big chunk of time, and Kobbie Mainoo's breakout season being delayed for months after a pre-season injury. And if all that wasn't enough, there was also an endless saga looming over the club, with the Glazers looking to offload all or part of the club in a sale. There was reportedly interest from Qatar and other consortiums, but Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos would ultimately win out, and an agreement would be reached in December 2023, with documents being signed in February 2024. All of this hoopla led to a drastically inconsistent season, with United not only finishing dead last in the Champions League group and being knocked out of Europe altogether much too early, but also finishing in an embarrassing 8th place in the Premier League, the worst in the club's history. Many players had down seasons to say the least. Casemiro, one of the best players from the season before, seemingly fell off a cliff, and Rashford, voted Player of the Year in 2023, couldn't replicate his form and finished with a measly 8 goals compared to 30 the season before. The only redeeming part of the season was the fact that United had made it to the FA Cup final, with a chance to avenge their loss from the year prior against the same opponents, Manchester City, and they would go on to do just that in a thrilling 2-1 victory, with 2 United Academy products in Alejandro Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo scoring the goals. The win would also result in United being included in the Europa League for the following season, something they could not achieve on their merits in the Premier League. Before the FA Cup final, many had assumed that was it for Ten Hag, but after the dramatic win and Ineos' 2-week strategic review, the decision was made to stick with Ten Hag for another season. In fact, extending his stay for a further season in a showing of backing. The Ineos hype was real during the transfer window, leading the charge on a pair of hijacks in Joshua Zirkzee from the cusp of Milan, and infamously up-and-coming superstar Lenny Yoro from the clutches of Real Madrid. 2 of Ten Hag's former players, Matthijs de Ligt and Houssam Mazraoui, would be brought in from Bayern Munich, in what many thought was a shrewd deal considering the price. The window ended with an all-action defensive midfielder in Ugarte joining from PSG, and a high-potential talent Sekou Kone joining from Mali. Notable exits included Martial and Varane, leaving on free transfers, ultimately due to health concerns. Prominent squad players Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Scott McTominay moved on to greater pastures, to West Ham and Napoli respectively. Mason Greenwood finally departed the club after years of controversy. Left-back and youth product Alvaro Fernandez left to Benfica in a strange move, with United very short at left-back and once again starting the season without Luke Shaw and Malacia. Other fringe squad players like Facundo Pellistri and Donny van der Beek were let go as well. Unfortunately, however, all of the preseason hype would quickly die down with a string of poor results. It started with a loss to Manchester City in the Community Shield. Not a huge deal on the face of it, but nevertheless a frustrating start to the season. United would go on to lose 2 of their first 3 Premier League matches, losing in the 96th minute against Brighton and being put away convincingly 3-0 against Liverpool at Old Trafford, and pressure began to mount on Ten Hag. The next 3 results weren't much better, winning against Southampton but drawing against Crystal Palace and losing to Spurs 3-0, once again at Old Trafford, and pressure continued to build. Ten Hag would take charge for 3 Europa League matches, all of which resulted in disappointing draws. In his final 3 Premier League matches, Ten Hag would once again win only 1, with a controversial and drama-filled 2-1 defeat at West Ham on the 27th of October 2024 being the final nail in the coffin. Manchester United would officially communicate the decision to part ways with Ten Hag on the 28th of October 2024 in a statement that read, Erik Ten Hag has left his role as Manchester United men's first-team manager. Erik was appointed in April 2022 and led the club to 2 domestic trophies, winning the Carabao Cup in 2023 and the FA Cup in 2024. We're grateful to Erik for everything he's done during his time with us and wish him well for the future. Ruud van Nistelrooy will take charge of the team as interim head coach, supported by the current coaching team, whilst the permanent head coach is recruited. So who to next? Only a few short hours after the announcement of Ten Hag's departure, news would break from The Athletic that United were in advanced talks to bring in Ruben Amorim from Sporting Lisbon as the next permanent manager, hinting at Ineos' contingency plan should Ten Hag get off to a poor start to the season. Only time will tell if Ruben Amorim will be appointed, let alone be a success. As fans, the only thing that we can hope for from the next man in charge is that he brings about some consistency to the pitch, getting us scoring more goals, be more defensively solid, and address the player power that has been rampant in the dressing room for years. Sounds just about impossible. Ten Hag's tenure was riddled with storylines. Many would argue he was dealt an unfair hand, inheriting a poor squad and facing countless injuries throughout his tenure. Others would say he spent enormous amounts of money to bring in players that he thought suited his system and has no excuses to hide behind. Ten Hag's reign saw the highest of highs, ending United's 60th trophy drought with the Carabao Cup win and the improbable conquering of Manchester City in the FA Cup. But it also saw the lowest of lows, including an embarrassing 7-0 historic hammering against Liverpool. Nevertheless, Ten Hag moves on, having given us many lasting memories, for better or for worse, and I wish him the very best for the future.